Can comics survive without Marvel and DC? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And we have an answer. It's a pretty simple one if we actually get down to it. But before we do that, we have to get into the idea of why. Why do we need them? Why do we need them? And if we do need them, what for? Well, there are actually quite a few reasons we need them. The main reason we need Marvel and DC is just to keep the industry alive. But there's a reason behind that. Too many people fear Marvel and DC's passing. They're saying, we've got to keep them alive or it dies and comics will never exist again. And that's an absolute falsity. It's a falsity on so many different levels. It makes no sense with business. Everyone's so scared of it. But in truth, the worst that could happen is the industry will contract. It will contract a little if Marvel and DC die, but it will not kill the comic industry. There's still Image Comics, there's still Dark Horse. There's still enough flagship companies that it'll still survive. The comics won't go away. Manga is growing right now. Manga's exploding. So they aren't dependent upon Marvel and DC to keep an industry alive at all. And everybody's like, oh, they're separate industries. No, they are not. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Manga is picking up the pieces where comics are failing. Every single person I know that cries about it and goes, I won't read manga. Well, for you, there's 25 other people that used to read Batman and said, nah, I'm not reading this political slog anymore. And now they're buying manga. They're huge fans of One Punch. They're huge fans of My Hero Academia. And Marvel and DC are just losing those people. They're just losing those fans. Image and the rest of them, they're trying, but their biggest problem is they're not creating new properties that are just blowing our minds. They come out with something every once in a while. I hear a lot about Saga. Of course, they did The Walking Dead there in the early 2000s, and people are like, that brought people back to comics. Yeah, it brought a lot of people to buy Walking Dead. Now, did it boom the comic industry? I'm sure they found a little bit of a bump in it, sure. But did it actually save the industry at that point? No, it didn't. It just kind of meandered along as it had been. But that's actually the biggest problem in Marvel and DC. They're happy to meander. They're happy to do just enough to make just enough money and even lose money. They've fallen so in love with politics and they've enamored themselves with so much of these inside people. Let's just say that. I'm not sure how to actually put that. They're just this political nonsense. It's just political nonsense. And I don't even want to get into that. And the truth is that they're putting a message before a story. And that's a recipe for instant disaster and death of a company. And as we're seeing now, their company is. It's flailing hard. Marvel and DC are dying as we watch. Now, the thing is that we need to have someone step up and say, I want to be the next Marvel and DC. And everybody's like, yeah, well, Image and Dark Horse are doing that. Yeah, they are. They are. They're trying. Will they succeed? Possibly. They've got a head start on everyone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll end up being the new Marvel and DC because they haven't done it so far. And really and honestly, the opportunity's been there. The opportunity has been there, and they haven't taken advantage. And I think the reason they didn't take the advantage is because they've been so focused on trying to make sure that the creators own their own projects. And once again, that's just a bunch of creators owning a bunch of separate projects as one single entity. Now I'm talking about Image, of course. But the problem with that is that they have no reason to cross over. They have no reason to create a universe that includes all of these characters. They have no reason to do any of that. And if they have no reason to do any of that, and people are like, oh, well, that's the problem with comics. Is it? Not necessarily. It only becomes a problem when you start rebooting everything over and over and over. Crossovers and things like that, people love. And you can lie all you want, and all these manga fans, oh, I don't want to see that at all. Bull, man. I see 1,000 dadgum Dragon Ball versus Naruto versus My Hero Academia characters versus Jujutsu Kaisen. I mean, there's so much of that. You want it so badly. But then you'll say it's the reason that comics aren't good is because their universe connects. Come on. Come on. Let's be real. There's nothing wrong with it. Not saying it's the best method, but there's nothing wrong with it. And the American industry, you don't necessarily have to have crossovers and all your characters in the exact same universe, but you do need to have congruency within the company. The company needs to own those projects. They need to have ownership to make them grow. And everyone says, oh, well, that's not true. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Because then you don't have competition. Then you can say, I want this character to be in this book or this promotion, and that's the end game. There is no question. You don't have to negotiate. You don't have to fight. You don't have to argue. And you don't have to pay more money. That's part of being a company. And people hate that, but that's life. That's how companies work. And to beat Marvel and DC, you have to realize they are companies. They are not a bunch of fly-by-night guys trying to make sure everybody can feel good about themselves. They're there to make money. And that money provides them the ability to make more comics, pay writers more, pay artists more, and create better stories. Now, there are a few guys that are trying to step up to the plate and actually do this. Now, we all know. I mean, let's be real. Regardless of what you think of Eric July, I'm not saying here nor there about the guy. I'm just saying his new edition, The Horseman, which I know there's a lot of stuff about that too, but just the move he made by letting Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett create a comic that's entirely theirs inside of his universe. You think that ownership's going to go to Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett? No. Well, not if Young Rip is smart. It'll be owned by the company. It'll be the Rippaverse. Now, that's actually how you build a company. And him doing that is a very smart move. He's expanding his universe. His universe is expanding. They're creating more titles. They're producing them faster. Now, that's the whole thing. I hear that the quality isn't the greatest here and there. Yeah. But they're learning in the first place. It's a burgeoning company. Now, once again, am I saying that they're the guys? No. I'm not saying they're the guys. I'm not saying they aren't the guys. I'm just saying he's making the right move. And that's what other creators need to be doing. You don't need Marvel and DC to keep the industry alive forever. You need Marvel and DC to keep the industry alive just long enough that you can usurp them. Pepsi isn't saying we want Coke to be Coke forever and be the number one product. That way we can always be number two. No, Pepsi is constantly trying to take Coke out. And so is RC Cola, and so is 1,000 Backhanded, Mug Root Beer. All these guys, or whoever's not owned by Coke, whatever, they're all going after Coke. Now, if Coke died tomorrow, the company died, then, well, guess what? Yeah, they'd take a hit in Coca-Cola sales, or cola sales, period. But someone would take that spot. People would groan and moan for about a year, but sooner or later they go, well, I want a cola, so I'm going to buy Pepsi. It's the next best thing, and it will take over. And if they make good products, it'll grow. That's the same thing in Marvel and DC. They die, it contracts. If they don't die, you usurp, take their spot, and grow even faster because there's no loss in the market. So that's a lot of long-winded talk, but in truth, yes. Here's the thing. Yes, we want Marvel and DC to survive. Can the comics survive without them? Can the industry survive without them? Yes, absolutely. That's nonsensical to say the comic industry wouldn't survive if they die. Like I said, it'd take a little bit of a hit, but it would survive. But the real thing is you want them to survive just long enough that you can take them out. Take their readership, take their viewership, take their everything. That's business. That's business, baby. Take it all. And when you take it, then you become the new Marvel and DC. So it's not so much can comics survive without them as you want them to survive just long enough. So that's it. So there you go. So thanks for tuning in. Friends, foes, and all those in between. I've been Jeremy Ball. Keep them alive just long enough till one of us can take over. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you next time.